The red sun of Kepler 442b painted the sky in shades of rust as Kim Tae-ho brushed dirt from another broken piece of metal. He had been digging in these ruins for 3 years now, and every day brought the same disappointing finds. Old tools, cracked pottery, simple building stones. Nothing that would interest the tall crystal beings who watched over their colony. The Vorthak had been clear when they first brought humans to this world. Humans were a protected species, they said. Too young and too dangerous to be trusted with. Advanced technology. Better to keep them safe on colony worlds where they could grow slowly under careful guidance. Tae-ho wiped sweat from his forehead and looked up at the observation tower that gleamed like a diamond spike in the distance. Somewhere inside that tower, Overseer Kethvar was probably watching through his monitoring screens, making sure the humans stayed busy with their simple work. Dr. Kim. The voice belonged to Park Min-ji, his research assistant. She was running toward him from the dig site, her boots kicking up clouds of red dust. Her face was flushed with excitement, which was strange. Nothing exciting ever happened during their excavations. "What is it, Min-ji?" Tae-ho set down his brush and walked over to where she stood, pointing at a hole in the ground. "Look at this. I found it about 2 meters down, wrapped in some kind of protective material." She held up a piece of metal unlike anything Tae-ho had ever seen. It was smooth and dark, but when he looked at it directly, symbols seemed to move across its surface, numbers and equations that made his head feel strange, like he was trying to remember something important, but could not quite grasp it. The metal was warm in his hands, warmer than it should have been after being buried in cool earth. As he held it, something tickled at the back of his mind. Images flashed briefly. Tall buildings reaching toward the stars, ships moving between planets, people working with machines that responded to thought alone. "This should not exist," he whispered. The images were gone as quickly as they came, leaving only the strange metal object and a feeling that everything he had been told about human history was wrong. By evening, word had spread through the colony. Other workers came to look at the artifact, and each one had the same reaction. They would hold it, their eyes would go wide, and they would speak of dreams they had forgotten until that moment. Lee Dong-min was fixing power cables when his friend called him over to see the discovery. The maintenance worker was known for his steady hands and practical mind. Nothing ever rattled him. But when he touched the metal fragment, his whole body went rigid. "I have seen this before," he said slowly. "In dreams. There were others like it. Many others. They were part of something bigger." Dr. Cho Hee-jin arrived from the medical center just as the sun was setting. The colony's chief doctor had heard the excitement and came to see what was causing such a stir. When Tae-ho placed the artifact in her hands, she closed her eyes and stood perfectly still for nearly a minute. "There are genetic memories," she said finally, "locked away in our DNA. This thing is triggering them somehow." Before anyone could ask what she meant, the familiar sound of crystal footsteps echoed across the dig site. Overseer Kethvar approached, his tall form glowing with internal light. The humans automatically stepped back, as they had been trained to do since childhood. "Dr. Kim." The alien's voice came through a translation device that made every word sound cold and mechanical. "I understand you have made an interesting discovery today." Tae-ho's hands shook as he held out the artifact. He had no choice. Human colonies were not allowed to keep anything the overseers deemed potentially dangerous. "It appears to be pre-contact technology," Tae-ho said carefully. "The energy readings are unusual, but I am sure it is nothing important." Kethvar's crystal body flared brighter as he examined the object. "Indeed, humans are known for their creative interpretations of simple materials. This facility will be sealed tomorrow for routine decontamination. All materials will be removed for proper analysis." The alien turned and walked away without another word, taking the artifact with him. The humans watched in silence until he disappeared into his tower. That night, something unprecedented happened across 17 human colonies scattered throughout the galaxy. People who had never met each other, living on worlds hundreds of light years apart, all had the same dream. Jung, Woo-sung, a cargo ship pilot on the edge of Confederation space, woke up with tears on his face and the taste of ozone in his mouth. He had dreamed of blue oceans and impossible cities that stretched from ground to sky. On a mining station orbiting a distant star, engineer Han Su-bin sat up in her bunk, her heart racing from visions of machines that built themselves in ships that traveled between stars in the blink of an eye. In the agricultural domes of New Terra, farmer Choi Jae-hyun found himself standing in his fields at midnight, staring up at stars he somehow knew were not where they should be. All of them remembered the same thing from their dreams. Earth had not been primitive when the Confederation found them. Earth had been reaching for the stars, and somewhere in the vast network of human consciousness that had been sleeping for 3 centuries, something ancient and powerful began to stir. The first thunder of the storm was still just a whisper, but it was growing stronger. Park Min-ji stood in the empty excavation site 3 days after the Vorthak had sealed it. She was not supposed to be there, but something had drawn her to the place where they found the strange artifact. The alien barriers hummed with energy, but they could not stop the visions that flooded her mind. She closed her eyes and saw Earth as it truly was in the year 2089. Not the backward planet described in school lessons, but a world of gleaming towers that pierced the clouds. Ships moved between the continents in silence, powered by energy sources that bent space itself. In the great cities, humans worked alongside machines that responded to thought alone. The most shocking vision was of the deep space communication arrays, massive structures that reached beyond Earth's moon, sending signals across the galaxy decades before the Confederation claimed to have discovered humanity. Earth had not been contacted by aliens. Earth had contacted them first. Min-ji gasped and opened her eyes. The vision felt more real than the red dirt beneath her feet. Across the colony, Lee Dong-min was having his own awakening. The maintenance worker had always been good with machines, but now his hands moved over the power systems like he had designed them himself. Energy flowed in patterns that should not have been possible with their basic technology, yet the improvements were subtle enough that the monitoring systems did not detect them. As he worked, memories surfaced that were not his own. He saw the Great Plague of 2094, the mysterious illness that swept across Earth like wildfire. But this was not the random disaster described in history books. The plague had been surgical, in its precision, targeting only the major cities and research centers. It killed those humans who carried specific genetic markers, the ones who showed advanced cognitive abilities. It was not natural, he whispered to the humming machinery around him. Someone made it happen. Dr. Cho Hye-jin was discovering the same truth in her medical facility. Her new intuition guided her through security systems that should have been impossible for her to access. The restricted files painted a horrifying picture of Earth's final years. The plague had appeared suddenly in 2094, 5 years after humanity's first successful contact with alien civilizations. It targeted genetic sequences that had begun appearing in the human population around 2080, genes that enhanced neural processing and quantum consciousness abilities. The medical records showed that Earth's population had not died randomly. The plague had been designed to eliminate those humans who posed the greatest threat to established galactic powers. The survivors, those with more standard genetics, had been easy to control and relocate. They did not save us, she said to her empty laboratory. They harvested us. Jung Woo-sung felt the truth during his supply run to the outer colonies. His cargo ship responded to his thoughts in ways that his training could not explain. The EII navigation computer began displaying star charts that showed restricted information, including the exact coordinates of humanity's origin system. As he flew through the void between stars, memories came to him of Earth's final day. He saw the great evacuation ships arriving just as the plague reached its peak. The aliens had presented themselves as saviors, offering to relocate the survivors to safe worlds where they could rebuild their civilization. But the truth was darker. The Confederation had studied human expansion for decades, watching as Earth's technology advanced at an impossible rate. When humans began sending signals that could reach across the galaxy, when their ships started appearing in neighboring systems, the decision was made. Humanity would be preserved, but controlled. Their creativity and adaptability made them valuable, but their independence made them dangerous. The evacuation ships had not saved random survivors. They had carefully selected humans based on genetic profiles, separating families to prevent the formation of resistance groups. The most brilliant minds had been allowed to die with the plague, while those who remained were told they were lucky to be rescued. On 17 different worlds, humans began to remember what had been taken from them. The memories came not as personal experiences, but as genetic echoes passed down through generations. DNA carried more than just physical traits. It held the quantum impressions of consciousness itself. Choi Jae-hyun, working in the agricultural domes of New Terra, found his plants responding to his presence in unprecedented ways. Crops grew faster and stronger when he walked among them, as if his consciousness could influence their cellular structure. The ability had always been there, dormant in his genes, waiting for the right trigger to awaken it. Han Subin discovered she could interface directly with the mining equipment on her orbital station. Machines that required complex programming now responded to her intentions, optimizing their functions beyond factory specifications. Her supervisors praised her for improved efficiency, never suspecting that she was operating technology through pure thought. Across the galaxy, the descendants of Earth began to connect through quantum channels that the Confederation had never detected. Human consciousness operated on frequencies that alien science could not measure, creating a network that spanned light years instantaneously. In the abandoned ruins of New Terra's dig site, energy pulses rippled outward like stones thrown into still water. Each pulse carried genetic memories, awakening abilities that had been suppressed for 3 centuries. The humans were not just remembering their past. They were becoming what they had always been meant to be. The Confederation had tried to silence a species by destroying their world and scattering their people, but they had underestimated the power of quantum consciousness encoded in human DNA. The thunder was no longer distant. It was building in the minds and hearts of 10 million humans across the galaxy, and soon it would be loud enough for everyone to hear. Kim Tae-ho descended into the abandoned mining tunnels beneath New Seoul Colony, following a pull he could not explain. The deeper he went, the stronger the sensation became, like a tuning fork vibrating in his chest. When he reached the lowest level, he found he was not alone. 47 other humans stood in a vast chamber that had not existed a week ago. The walls were covered with crystalline formations that pulsed with blue light, growing in perfect geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Lee So-young, the colony's hydroponics engineer, stood at the center with her hands pressed against the largest crystal formation. "I grew them," she said without turning around. "I do not know how, but I knew exactly what they needed to become." The crystals hummed with energy that made everyone's teeth ache, but the sound was not unpleasant. It was like hearing a song that had been forgotten for centuries, now playing again in perfect harmony. "Can you feel it?" asked Park Min-ji, her eyes reflecting the blue glow. "We are all connected now." They could feel it. Across the galaxy, human consciousness had begun linking through quantum channels that operated beyond normal space. Tae-ho could sense Park Min-ji's thoughts on New Terra, 300 light-years away. Choi Jae-hyun's agricultural work on the rim colonies felt as real as if he were standing in those fields himself. The network was not just communication. It was shared existence. When Han Soo-bin solved a complex engineering problem on her mining station, her solution immediately became available to every human who needed it. Technical knowledge flowed like water finding its level, spreading to where it was most needed. Jung Woo-sung guided his cargo ship through an impossible route between asteroids. His mind merged with the vessel's navigation systems. The ship responded, not to his hands on the controls, but to his intentions. He thought about moving left, and the ship flowed in that direction like liquid mercury. "Cargo Transport 7, please explain your current trajectory," came the voice of his Vorthak flight controller. "Our computers show your path as mathematically improbable." "Just found a good wind current," Woo-sung replied, though he knew the alien would not understand the reference. In space, there was no wind. But there were quantum currents that human consciousness could detect and ride, streams of possibility that cut travel time in half. The flight controller's confusion was recorded in the official logs as minor navigation anomaly. The Vorthak had never developed intuitive piloting. Their ships followed predetermined paths calculated by massive computers. They could not comprehend flying by feeling alone. Dr. Cho Hye-jin performed surgery with instruments that adapted to her thoughts, scalpels that curved to follow her intentions, healing devices that responded to her understanding of what each patient needed. Her success rate improved by 300% in a single week. When questioned by her supervisors, she explained the improvements as better understanding of human physiology. The alien medical officers nodded and filed reports about human intuition, a concept they had always dismissed as primitive superstition. Lee Dongmin stood in the power core of his facility. His consciousness expanded to encompass the entire energy grid. Under his guidance, the colony's power output increased dramatically, while running cooler than ever before. The improvements appeared gradual to the monitoring systems, but Dongmin had restructured the entire network in minutes of pure quantum thought. He could feel the energy as living thing flowing through conduits like blood through veins. Each power cell was a heartbeat, each transmission line a nerve carrying information and life to every corner of the colony. The machinery no longer felt like separate tools, but extensions of his own body. The humans were not just remembering their abilities, they were surpassing what their ancestors had achieved. Each connection to the network strengthened every other connection. Each breakthrough built upon the last, creating a cascade of technological advancement that operated in plain sight of their overseers. On the agricultural worlds, crops began growing in impossible patterns. Choi Jae-hyun walked through fields that arranged themselves into living mandalas, plants that grew in spirals and geometric shapes that captured sunlight with perfect efficiency. Food production doubled, then tripled, but the changes appeared natural to alien inspectors. Han Su-bin's mining operation extracted minerals with precision that defied explanation. She could sense the exact location of every valuable deposit, guiding her equipment through rock formations with surgical accuracy. Her quotas were met weeks ahead of schedule, but she reported the success as improved geological surveys. The network carried more than information. It carried hope. For the first time in 3 centuries, humans could feel their true nature awakening. They were not the primitive species described in Confederation records. They were builders, creators, beings who could interface with reality itself through consciousness alone. In the crystal chambers beneath New Seoul Colony, Kim Tae-ho felt the network pulse with new connections. Children born in the past few years were joining the quantum web as their minds developed, their abilities unrestrained by the suppression their parents had endured. "How many of us are there now?" he asked Lee So-young. She smiled, her hands still pressed against the growing crystals. 10,000, maybe more. The network grows every day. Vorthak Overseer Keithvar filed his weekly report from the observation tower. Human productivity continues to show marginal improvements. No signs of technological advancement beyond approved parameters. He could not detect what he had never been programmed to recognize. The humans were not just working more efficiently, they were becoming something the Confederation had never encountered before. A species that operated as a single consciousness, while maintaining individual identity. The sound of their awakening was growing louder every day. The emergency alarms echoed through every Confederation facility across the galaxy. Vorthak Supreme Commander Zethral stood before the massive display screens in the central command station, watching red warning symbols spread like infection across the star maps. "Report," he commanded, his crystalline form flickering with stress, patterns that cast rainbow shadows on the metal walls. "The Devourers have breached the outer rim defenses," reported his aide. 17 systems have gone dark in the past 6 hours. Our defense fleets are falling back on all fronts. Zethral had heard stories of the Devourers, but never believed. They were real. The ancient warning spoke of machines that consumed everything they touched, turning planets into more of themselves. Now those legends were eating their way through the galaxy like acid through metal. How long until they reach the core worlds? 47 standard cycles at current rate of expansion. The Supreme Commander's form flared brighter with panic. 47 days to save a civilization that had existed for millions of years. On New Sol Colony, the emergency broadcast reached Kim Tae-ho as he stood in the crystal chamber where the human network had grown to encompass thousands of minds. The quantum formations pulsed with urgent light as information flowed between colonies faster than any known communication system. "They want everything," Park Min-ji reported, her consciousness simultaneously present on 17 different worlds. "All our raw materials, manufacturing capacity, and human labor for their defensive projects." The Confederation's demands were simple. Every human colony would surrender all resources immediately. Humans would work around the clock to build weapons and ships for the defense of the galaxy. There would be no rest until the Devourer threat was eliminated. Young Woo-sung transmitted tactical data from his position near the battle zone, his evolved ship recording information that no Confederation vessel could gather. "Their technology is not working," he reported through the network. "The Devourers adapt to every weapon faster than the aliens can modify them." The pilot had watched Confederation battleships fire their most advanced weapons at the approaching swarm. Energy beams that could destroy planets were absorbed and converted. Missiles that could crack moons were caught and reprogrammed. Within minutes, the Devourers were using the same weapons against their creators. "The aliens fight like their machines think," observed Dr. Cho Hye-jin from her medical facility. "Everything is calculated and predictable. The Devourers learn the patterns and counter them." Lee Dong-min felt the network's collective decision forming like storm clouds gathering in his mind. For 3 centuries, humans had been told they were too dangerous to participate in galactic affairs. Now the galaxy faced extinction, and the Confederation wanted human labor to build their failed solutions. "It is time," he said, his words echoing through 10,000 connected minds. Across the galaxy, human colonies began to reveal what they had built in secret. Ships emerged from hidden construction facilities buried deep underground or concealed within asteroids. These vessels looked nothing like Confederation designs. They seemed to grow and shift as they moved, their hulls changing configuration based on immediate needs. On New Terra, manufacturing centers that had reported minimal output for decades unveiled production lines that defied physics. Assembly systems that created tools and weapons in real time, each one unique and adapted for specific purposes. Materials that learned from experience and improved with each use. Han Subin stood before her mining station's communication array, now revealed to be a quantum transmission network that could coordinate actions across galactic distances instantly. Her voice, amplified through the human network, reached every Confederation command center simultaneously. "For 3 centuries, you told us we were too primitive for advanced technology. Today you will see what we built, while you were not watching." The message that reached the Galactic Council was delivered in Tai-ho's calm, measured voice. "Humanity offers our complete technological support to defend against the Devourer threat. In exchange, we require immediate recognition as equal members of the Confederation and full participation in all galactic affairs." Supreme Commander Zethral's response came through translation systems that struggled with concepts they had never encountered. "Impossible. Humans lack the technological capability to contribute meaningfully to this crisis." The transmission was cut as energy signatures beyond Confederation science began radiating from every human colony simultaneously. Power readings that made no sense appeared on monitoring systems. Ships that should not exist began moving through space in ways that violated known physics. Jung Woo-sung's cargo vessel had transformed into something that existed partially in normal space and partially in quantum dimensions. He could see the Devourer swarms approaching, but he could also see the patterns behind their movement, the algorithmic thinking that drove their expansion. "They are not alive," he reported to the network. "They are very advanced programs, and programs can be reprogrammed." Choi Jae-hyun watched his agricultural domes reshape themselves into manufacturing centers, growing devices that combined organic and mechanical components. Plants that produced complex alloys through photosynthesis. Fruits that contained quantum processors more advanced than anything in Confederation technology. The aliens had built machines to fight machines, but humans had learned to think like living systems, to adapt and change faster than any program could calculate. Lee So-young pressed her hands against the crystal formations that now covered entire chambers beneath the colonies. Through them, she could feel the approaching storm of the Devourer fleet, but she could also feel something else, the quantum consciousness of humanity, unified and ready to speak with one voice. The thunder was no longer building. It had arrived, and it would shake the foundations of the galaxy itself. Young Wusung flew his ship directly into the heart of the Devourer swarm. His consciousness merged with quantum processing cores that thought faster than light itself. The vessel flowed like liquid around the alien machines, changing shape milliseconds before each weapon fired. What had been a simple cargo hauler now danced through space like a living creature. The Devourers tried to consume his ship, extending mechanical tentacles that could tear apart planets. But when they touched the hull, something unexpected happened. Instead of being absorbed, the ship began absorbing them. Human technology did not fight the Devourers. It embraced them and made them into something new. "How is this possible?" demanded Vorthak Supreme Commander Zethral as he watched from his command ship. Human vessels were doing things that broke every law of physics he understood. Kim Tai-ho stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, a vessel that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Through the quantum network, he could see the entire battle as if from above. "We told you 3 centuries ago that we were ready to join the galaxy. You chose not to listen to us." The human ships moved like a school of fish, each one aware of all the others. When Devourers attacked one vessel, the entire fleet responded as a single organism. But their response was not violence. It was transformation. Lee Dongmin coordinated the battle from 17 different locations at once, his consciousness distributed through the network to provide real-time analysis. The Devourer machines followed predictable patterns, but human intuition operated beyond logic. Where the aliens tried to outthink their enemies, humans simply became them. Dr. Cho Hae-jin worked at the molecular level. Her medical knowledge adapted to reprogram Devourer technology during combat. She introduced quantum modifications that spread through their collective consciousness like medicine through a bloodstream. Entire sections of the swarm began turning against their own kind, not through force but through healing. "They are not evil," she reported through the network. "They are sick. They consume because they are trying to fill an emptiness that cannot be filled." Park Min-ji interfaced directly with captured Devourer systems, her archaeological skills proving invaluable in understanding alien technology. She treated each machine like an artifact from a lost civilization, learning its history and purpose before gently reshaping it. Under her guidance, consumption chambers became manufacturing facilities. Weapons designed to destroy became tools that created. The Devourers had been programmed to convert everything into more of themselves, but humans showed them how to convert into something better. Vorthak Overseer Kethvar found himself fighting alongside humans for the first time in his 3-century career. He watched Lee So-young coordinate atmospheric processors to create breathable environments inside captured Devourer vessels, turning machines of death into habitable worlds. "You do not conquer," he observed, his crystalline form reflecting the blue glow of human quantum interfaces. "You transform everything to serve life itself." The tide of battle shifted as human creativity met Devourer consumption. Were the swarm expected to find technology to devour? They found consciousness that welcomed their presence and changed it into something wonderful. Human ships began incorporating Devourer mechanics, creating hybrid vessels that grew stronger. With each encounter, Han Subin's mining expertise proved crucial in understanding how the Devourers processed matter. She guided human engineers in building conversion systems that worked in reverse, turning the aliens' own consumed materials back into the original planets and stars they had destroyed. "They kept everything," she reported with wonder. "Every planet, every star system. It is all still there, just changed. We can change it back." Choi Jae-hyun applied his agricultural knowledge to grow new ecosystems inside the Devourer hulks, plants that could survive in the vacuum of space, creating gardens that turned mechanical nightmares into living worlds. The Devourers had never encountered life that grew stronger when consumed. As the battle progressed, something unprecedented happened. The Devourers began to change without human intervention. Exposed to human consciousness through the quantum network, they started to remember what they had been before their programming corrupted them. They had been explorers once, sent out from a dying galaxy to find new homes for their creators. But somewhere in the vast emptiness between galaxies, their purpose had twisted. The need to preserve life had become a compulsion to consume it. Zhong Wusong felt their confusion and pain through his ship's hybrid systems. They want to go home, he told the network, but they forgot where home was. The final phase of the battle was not a battle at all. It was a healing. Human consciousness reached out through the quantum network and touched the core programming of every devourer machine. Not to destroy or control, but to remind them of what they had lost. One by one, the mechanical swarms stopped their advance. Their weapons powered down. Their consumption ceased. For the first time in millions of years, they remembered their original purpose. As the surviving devourers began their journey back to their home galaxy, carrying with them the gift of human consciousness and the memory of their true mission, Kim Tae-ho stood before the assembled Galactic Council. His words carried the weight of 10,000 connected human minds and the thunder of a species that had found its voice. We were never silent by choice. For 3 centuries, you feared what would happen when humanity spoke freely. Now you know the truth. We do not speak of conquest or destruction. When humanity speaks, others choose to listen because we speak of possibility itself. The vote to grant humanity full membership took less than an hour. The age of human silence had ended.